What's going on, everyone? It's Braydon Lynch here with the third episode of the Canadian Famous Podcast. We're coming to you live on, I think it's April 9th, 2024. How was your week? Let me know. I'm doing this. There's a little Coors Edge getting cracked in the background. I'm doing this podcast. I'm doing it on Instagram Live, and then we're going to switch over halfway through to TikTok Live. See if anybody wants to tune in and ask me questions while I'm doing this. We've got Lenny the Butcher who's just joined in. That's cool. So, if anybody wants to talk about anything, throw it in the comments. If not, I'm just going to get rolling here. My week was good. I was getting coffee one day, and this is something that happened. I was getting espresso, and I'm in line, and I'm waiting for my espresso, and then I hear this lady comes up behind me, and she's getting a cappuccino, and she goes, "You guys don't have lactose-free milk, so I want you to make my cappuccino with lactose-free milk." And so she hands this lactose-free milk to the girl behind the counter, and she's making up the cappuccino or whatever, and then she goes in and she's starting talking about how she doesn't have lactates. She's not allergic to lactose, but she doesn't have lactates. And I'm like, well, you probably lactated them all away. She was an older lady. I don't know if that's possible, that you can lactate all your lactades away and then you can't process milk. I don't know. It's just something I was thinking about. Kind of stupid, but that's all right. I wanted to talk about this. I think Omegle, it was like a chat thing, like online, kind of like this Instagram Live here. We got one follower. That's great. So the Omegle is a thing, but I think it's shut down now. But I was on Omegle a couple months back with my girlfriend at the time, I guess ex-girlfriend. You could call her girlfriend, ex-girlfriend. Who knows what the deal is there. But so we're on this Omegle. Surprised they used her milk. Yeah, she didn't lactate it out. Like, it wasn't like she was like, "Oh, you got to use my lactose-free milk." I lactated them all away. Here we go. She handed them a jar of this like lactose milk and or lactose-free milk, and they made it up, and she was upset that they were going to charge her for milk anyways. So I was on the I'm on the Omegle a couple months back with my girlfriend, ex-girlfriend, and we had been drinking at the time. And this was back when I was boozing. And so we're going through them. We're chatting. We're swiping on people, And most of the guys on there, I just kept saying, "Oh, you guys are whacking off. You're whacking off, right?" And then we came up to this one guy, and we're chatting. And we're just hammered. And we start airing out our dirty laundry to this random dude down in the States. And I forget what happened, but at one point in time, we told her everything, like the reason why we had broke up, right? We had already broke up at this point, and we were still fucking after it. And so we're like talking to this guy, and I'm like telling him everything I did. And then she's like, "Yeah, see, he did this and he did that." And then the guy's like, "Well, what did you do?" And then she's like, "I didn't do anything." And he's like, "Shut the fuck up, bitch." And I was just like, oh, yes. Like, I wanted to say it so badly. But just having this random dude on the internet say it, that was pretty sweet. That's the power of the internet these days, right? You can do kind of anything you want. This Instagram Live, there's nobody on here. Oh, the Ryan Dillon just joined. Well, we only got one, so I'm switching over to TikTok. And now, okay, we're going to switch over to TikTok. Here we go. This one, we're going to go, this way. Give me a second here. Give me a second. All right. And we are going to go, this is so unprofessional as we're doing this live, and I'm not going to edit this. So if you're listening, sorry. Here you go. 3, 2, 1. We're TikTok live. Let's see who's gonna tune into this puppy. I got to confirm shapes, objects that are the same shape. There we go. And I'm confirmed, and we are live on TikTok. Wow. So I'm going to talk about, I said last week how I was going to talk about, there was a guy who overdosed. We were at a comedy show. During the pandemic, we had to do comedy outside on patios. And so we were at this comedy show, and we're watching this show, and then somebody kind of came up and was like, "Oh, I think that guy's overdosing back there. Or this guy's passed out." So I look over, and there's this guy, and he's down. He's done the funky chicken. And I'm like, "Oh, no, I've got CPR. Like, I'm trained." I said it last week at the end of the episode. And I'm like, I got to act, So I call 911. I get on the phone with this guy, and somebody leaves. They go and they're trying to find like a Narcan kit or whatever. And I start doing like CPR on this guy. I'm doing compressions on this guy. And it was the scariest thing I think I've ever done in my life, doing compressions on this guy. 911's on the horn, and they're like, hey, you got to keep doing this until we show up. They show up, and then they called me later. They said that I saved the guy's life, and that was pretty intense, check in to see if the guy was breathing or not. That was one of the things that, COVID, it really messed up people's mental health, I feel like also like McDonald's, really capitalized on the whole COVID thing, right? Because like before COVID, you could go into McDonald's at any point in time and you could just order a Big Mac and fries and you could just get your combo there and do whatever you wanted. But now you got to have the app, you got to pre-order and everything. And it's like, what's happening here with the McDonald's? I don't know why. I don't know why they took advantage of this, but it's just like they're like the mafia, and they're like, no, you want our food, you can order the app, you can have it delivered to your front door, we don't care, but you cannot come into our establishment. Really what it was is I think they were trying to get rid of the crackheads, right? They didn't want crackheads in there doing crack in the bathrooms and going out and having their Big Macs. Big Mac, more like big crack, you know what I'm talking about. I feel like McDonald's changed during the pandemic, and something else also changed during the pandemic. Before the pandemic, I got asked to MC a wedding, and I was like, oh, this is great. This is one of my really good buddies. I get to MC his wedding. I get to be there for him, be a part of it. And then COVID happened, right? And so he messaged me. He's like, hey, obviously we're postponing the wedding. We're not doing it because of COVID. Okay, yeah, right. And so then after everything opened up, they had the wedding, and I didn't even get invited to it. I didn't even get to redate. And I'm like, how did I go from being asked to be the master of ceremonies at these people's wedding to not even being invited at all? Like, I don't know if it was, I got my vax. I don't know. Yeah, people went crazy during COVID, that's my take on it. Last week, I said that I was going to talk about my experience at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. That was wild. Edinburgh Fringe Festival, for those of you following on TikTok, we got, 26 viewers. That's pretty wild. Somebody, Willy Wonkers, says, hey, Willy Wonkers, that's a cool name. You got a little Wonker, you get a little honker, a little honker doodle. Yeah, for those of you people watching on TikTok, and I guess listening when this comes out on Apple Podcasts and on YouTube, Edinburgh Fringe Festival is it's one of the biggest comedy festivals in the world. It's held in Edinburgh, Scotland, and basically there's I think it's over 2,000 comedy shows every single day that go on. There's I think there was 380 venues, and there's comedy shows that go from literally like midnight till midnight. At all times of the hour, there's comedy shows. So I went there. I had no idea what to expect. I brought my, this is called the Canadian Famous podcast. The show that I brought to Edinburgh Fringe, the tour was called the Canadian Famous Tour. So I brought my show, the one-man show, to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. I actually had like people that would open up the shows for me. They would host or start the show off, and then I'd come up and I'd headline, and I'd do 45 minutes. And this was like one of the craziest things I've done in comedy, because not only were you there and you just had to perform as a comedian, you had to be a salesman, you had to be out on the streets, you had to be handing out flyers, you had to be barking people and saying, hey, come to my show, instead of one of the other 2,000 shows that are going on today, right? I met up my buddy. I had a few buddies from Toronto that they ended up going to Edinburgh too, so we kind of chummed up, and we were hanging out during the festival, and they would open some shows for me and whatnot. And we were out and we were flyering one night, and I went and when you go to hand a flyer to someone, even in Scotland, like even in Edinburgh, and they know that comedy is on, they don't want to take the flyer. They're like, no way, like we're not interested, and it's like swiping left. They're like, no, don't fucking talk to me, right? And so I'm like handing out these flyers, and I handed it to this one guy, and the one guy's like, fuck off, you drifting prick. And I was like, what did I do? Like, I just tried to give you and I'm like, drifting prick. And we both laughed, and I'm like, why would he call me a drifter? And then my buddy's like, well, your bag, you kind of do look a little homeless. And I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I do look homeless. So that kind of made sense. We had a lot of fun. The first show, I remember it was like an hour before the show, and I was like, oh, we're gonna have to cancel. We've got no tickets sold online. Some people do like a free fringe where they'll just like bring people into their shows, and then at the end of the show they like ask for like donations and stuff like that. That's not what I did. I was like, I had a ticketed show, so I got to see who was ordering tickets beforehand. We had no tickets purchased like an hour before the show, and we did our show there was this like fancy venue called the Alchemist in United Kingdom. There were a bunch of them. I guess I would kind of compare it to like a Cactus Club or a Joey's here in North America. So we were doing the Fringe at this Alchemist venue, and it was like an hour before the show. We had no tickets sold, and I'm like, shit, we're gonna have to cancel. And then just, the power of the universe, power of, positive thinking. I went out, I barked a few people in the restaurant. I was just like, free comedy show. All of a sudden we ended up with 15 people in there. I'm like, okay, we're rocking, we're rolling. A boss, my buddy, he kicked the show off, and we had a wicked time. Throughout that festival, I learned that you have to have tough skin. You have to not give a shit what people think. That's what I'm trying to do right now. There's a bunch of people logged in. I see my girlfriend / ex-girlfriend is logged in there. I don't know. I haven't seen anybody post anything, like a question or anything like that. So yeah, it's the same thing. I'm just like, whatever, thick skin here. Who cares what you guys are saying, right? Unless you guys are saying that I'm ugly or something like that, then I might get a little self-conscious. But this festival, it like taught me to be like thick-skinned. You have to promote yourself. You have to just be ruthless. Like you have to be, you have to like, I had to get like these posters designed, and I had to like go around, and I go around Scotland, and I had to stick out from every single other person that was running a show there. So I had my show called Canadian Famous. I was always wearing like denim or plaid, and people would be like, oh, this is you on the poster. And I was like, yeah, that's me. There was one couple that I barked in. They had no interest. I handed them a flyer, and they're like, oh yeah, we got another show we're going to do tonight, thanks though. And they ended up coming to the show that night, and they were like, we changed our plans because you have the same last name as us. They were from England, and they're like, you have the same last name as us, and our son's name is Braydon, so we wanted to come watch you. And I'm like, oh, thank you very much. That couple walked out 15 minutes into my set. I'm a little more dirty comedian. I don't really hold back when I'm on stage. I'm not going to sugarcoat things or try and do things like a clean way. And this couple was just like, no, we're fucking done. They walked out. So yeah, we did the shows at the Alchemist. I think I did them for 14 days straight. And the second night we had like 15 tickets sold, and my goal was to sell over 100 tickets throughout the festival. I think I ended up selling 130 or 140. Every night was different crowd. You didn't know what to expect. There were a lot of Canadians that were in Edinburgh that were there for the festival, and that weren't there for the festival. But yeah, a lot of Canadians came out to support. It was a lot of fun. At one point in time, I handed out like a flyer to Gerard Butler, and everybody said that I was like saying it wrong, that it was Jared Butler or Gerald Butler, and it's not Gerald, it's not Gerard, it's Jared. That's how they pronounce it in Scotland. Jared Butler. And so I handed him the flyer, and he looked at the flyer, and then he looked back at me, and we had this like intimate moment. And he's like, fuck man, you're a handsome dude. And I'm like, I know, you're a handsome dude too. Like, are you the Sparta 300 guy? And he's like, yeah, I am. And then he kicked me in the nuts. That part didn't happen, but he actually did look at me, and we had an intimate moment. And he went into the venue, and I think he met up with somebody, and then he left about like 2 minutes later. And so the next day I showed up, and I told the guys from the venue, I chummed up with them, because I was always drinking there and eating there, and they were great people. Shout out to Ross and Abby at the Alchemist. It was a lot of fun, and just had all these. Ebry and Ross. Yeah, they were beauties. And, I'd have these, I'd just drink my face off there, and I'd go out and I'd hand out posters, hand out flyers. And so I told them, I'm like, you guys know, like, Jared Butler was here yesterday? And the one's like, Jared Butler was here yesterday. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, you're full of shit. And I'm like, I'm not, man. And so then he went up and he checked the security cameras. I told him what time it was. And the next day I came in, he's like, mate, to be fair, he's like, I think you were right. He's like, it was Jared Butler. And he showed me the security footage, and I'm like, that's fucking Sparta 300, dude. Follow me on Instagram at Canadian Famous Comedy or at Braydon Lynch, and I'll post a video there, and you guys can see old Jared Butler grabbing a flyer from old Canadian Famous himself. Did he come to my show? No, he didn't. Did I use his name and tell every single person after that he was coming to my show? Yes, 100% I did. Were there people that came to the show expecting Gerard Butler to be there? Yeah, totally. I lied to them. It was great. I would just walk down, hand out flyers. I'd be like, Jared Butler's going to be there. And then I'd say, oh, it's a dark and dirty show, kind of like my ex's heart. That one seemed to get people interested. They'd come. So yeah, you would go out, and my shows were at 8 p.m. There were shows that would go like all night till midnight, right? There'd be shows that started at midnight, shows that started at 11. And so I would go and I'd hand out flyers throughout the day, drinking beer. I lost my voice 3 days into the festival. So I was rasping and I'm handing out flyers. People are like, look at this fucking crackhead. It's probably why that one guy called me a drifting prick. But yeah, so I'd hand out flyers during the day, hang up posters wherever I could. And then I would do my comedy show, 45 minutes or whatever. And then when I was done, I would go out and I'd keep drinking and we'd keep partying. I would go to another buddy's show or whatever, watch something, or I'd keep flyering. And we drank so much in Scotland. We drank at this place called Whistle Binkies. It was like this bar, and they had comedy shows. I think that started at like 2 p.m. in the afternoon. I never made it to any of these. Thoughts on a Zaro pour home? Is that a cologne? I know that that's a cologne, but what about me and this reel make you think that I have a Zaro cologne? I've never smelt it. My guess is that it smells like shit. That's my thoughts on it. It smells like shit. If you want a good cologne, get the Gucci Guilty, or one of my favorites back in the day was Calvin Klein Crave. A lot of my homeboys will know that. Kind of smelled like cucumbers. But yeah, it was pretty good. Clinique Happy for men. That's another good one. I haven't seen in a while. Yeah, so that's my thoughts on your Azaro Pour Homme or whatever. You asking about fragrances. What a weirdo. Oh yeah, so we do the Whistle Binkies, and I met these Irish guys there that played in the band, and the one guy, he hooked me up. I was going to Ireland after, and he hooked me up. One of his buddies ran shows in Ireland, and he hooked me up with one of the producers at that show, and so I ended up getting some spots just by being out and drinking. And that guy did have terrible breath. I do remember sitting there talking to him, and he was like a big dude with a beard, and he'd spit when he talked, and he just had the worst stinking Guinness breath I've smelt in my life. And I was just like, just tough it out, try and get this connection with this spot in Ireland so you can get on comedy there. And it ended up working out good. But this Whistle Binkies place was so much fun. They would have live music. We'd sit there and we'd do this thing called Splitting the G, where you'd order, a pint of Guinness. And for you UK people, you're obviously like, oh yeah, Splitting the G, everyone knows. North Americans probably won't know as much, right? So you get a Guinness, and you have to drink it, and in one sip you have to land like the top of the suds. You have to land it in the middle of the G. Speaking of which, let's have a little sip of Coors Edge here. It's not sponsored by Coors Edge at all, but I'll give you a little ranking of it. Now, I did say that a non-alcoholic beer cannot be rated higher than an 8, because that's true. There's no alcohol in it. That Harmon's Jack Pine one I did last week, I gave it a 7.95. These puppies, these Coors Edge puppies, they got to be a 7.98. These are probably the best non-alcoholic beers I've tasted. I shotgunned one last weekend, and it felt like the real thing. Felt really good. Am I struggling with my sobriety? No, I'm kicking ass and taking names. So yeah, we would like drink these Guinness, and you'd have to land it in between the G. And I did it for this one guy. I did it at this other club. Oh, what was that place called? Oh yeah, the Dropkick Murphys. Not the band, but there is a band called Dropkick Murphy. Shout out. Yeah, so I was at that bar, and I saw this guy, and he told me the trick of splitting the G. And if you want to know the trick, you're going to have to follow me and DM me, and I'll tell you the secret of how to split the G with a Guinness. So I'm doing it at the Dropkick Murphy, and this guy looks over at me, and he's like, holy shit, mate. He's like, I respect you more than I respect my father. I've been trying to do that my whole life. And I was like, well, you and your dad suck ass. So yeah, we would just pound Guinness all night. I would make stupid remarks. My girlfriend back home, she hated getting the videos of me, super drunk, super wasted. Um, Probably why we're not together anymore. But that's good. What else happened when I was in Edinburgh? Oh yeah, one night we were at Whistle Binkies and we were drinking the Guinness. And I met so many people there. I tried so many different beers, and we were having fun with Ebery and a boss. Michael Moses was there and this Ross guy. And so we're like listening to the live band. We're like, oh, this is great. And then this old lady came up and she had like a fucking cowboy hat on. And she's like, you're sitting in my spot. And I'm like, no, you're not. Like, no, we're not. We just grabbed this table, lady. And then we went to move for her and she hit me with her cane. And I'm like, ow, what the fuck is your problem? We gave you your spot. And she just kept like just chirping. And she was just drunker than a skunk, this old lady. And then later on in the night, I was playing VLTs, like the slot machines. And she came up and she wanted to play with me, and she's showing me how to play. Next thing you know, she's my fucking BFF. We're winning together on the slot machines, and the boys were just fucking dying laughing because she had this greasy cowboy hat on, and she went from like beating me with the cane to fucking trying to make me win money. I think she was trying to. I think she was gonna try and scam me and beat me to death with the cane and steal my money, but that didn't happen. Was there any other times in Edinburgh? No, I didn't almost get mugged. I almost got mugged in Ireland. That'll be a story for next week. So you're gonna have to tune in to the podcast next week. Is anybody else asking questions? No, just the Cologne guy. That's great to hear. What else happened in Edinburgh? Oh yeah, so the shows were great. Met a lot of people. Had a bunch of fun. I think I sold 140 tickets over the 14 days. It was something like that. Did I lose money? Oh yeah, lost a ton of money. If I wouldn't have drank, I maybe would have broke even. No, I still wouldn't have broke even, but I probably did. I probably did spend as much money as I made in ticket sales. I probably spent that in drinks. I met this guy. He was playing at Whistle Binkies the one night, and what was his band's name? Oh, it was called the Smokin' Jeffries. Or no, they weren't at Whistle Binkies. It was at a different. I'm not gonna remember the name of it. You're gonna have to follow me on Instagram, and then I'll tell you where the name of what it was there. But there was this band called the Smokin' Jeffries, and these guys were awesome. And the guy's name was Jeff, and he had this one song, and he would be on the acoustic guitar. He's just belting his heart out. And yeah, it was unreal. So we chummed with him the a couple nights, and they were doing the Devil's Dandruff, and I don't think I did the Devil's Dandruff when I was there. I got weed while I was there. I found that pretty quick. It was garbage compared to Canadian weed, and it sucked having to buy weed from a dealer. Like, cause here in Canada, you got the dispensaries you can go to. Like, it's sold by the government, so anywhere you want weed, you can just go and get it now from a storefront. With a dealer, you have to wait, and it just reminded me of like high school. Like every shitty weed dealer being like, "Oh yeah, I'll be there in an hour. Meet me there in an hour," and then it's like 3 hours later. It's like, dude, like where are you? You said to wait here, man. I've been waiting for you. Like, what's going on? Weed dealers were the most unreliable people I think I ever encountered in my life. Them and the Jews. No, I'm just kidding. I really love the Jews. Yeah, weed dealers, they were shitty at Edinburgh. And the first time I got weed, I'm like, oh, this is pretty good. It's not bad. And then the second bag wasn't as good. And then the third bag was just trash. And the third bag, he was like, oh, I thought you said you were going home. And I'm like, yeah, well, I decided to extend my stay. And that's when I realized that he thought that I was leaving. So he's like, oh, this guy isn't going to see me again. He's like, I'll fucking give him the snickle fritz, as they say on Pineapple Express. So yeah, it was a bunch of fun. I can't think of any highlights right now, any more highlights other than seeing Gerard Butler drinking a bunch of Guinness, getting beat up by that girl with the cowboy hat. And yeah, and then I ended up going to Ireland. Where were we at time? Oh, we're perfect. I got to clear up some mistakes that I made on last week's podcast. I talked about Tupac getting shot in Los Angeles. Turns out he got shot in Vegas. Shows how smart I am. I'm like sitting here like, oh yeah, I'm like the biggest like Tupac fan. I'm harnessing him as a ghost in my dreams because he got shot. Don't even know where for some reason, it's the loss and the loss. Like, who else has never confused Las Vegas and Los Angeles, right? I don't know. He was from LA, right? To live and die in LA. The Bloods and the Crips, right? So yeah, I got to clear that up. Tupac got shot in Las Vegas. It wasn't in Los Angeles. And the place that I said, I was like, I think he got shot at the corner of Hollywood Boulevard and Vermont Ave, I think is where I said. I looked it up and there's nothing there. There's a Thai restaurant and I'm like, huh, where did I pull that out of my head? I'm like, no idea where I got that. Maybe I heard it in a song sometime. Who knows? Oh, and the other thing I had to clear up is Noah's Ark. I said that Noah was on the ark for 40 days and 40 nights. Turned out he was on there a lot longer than that. 371 days. Just over a year, they said Noah was on the ark. So maybe Noah was sober for a year. Was he or was he not? A lot of people think Noah was pounding wine on the ark, and I'm going to say he probably was. You know how stinky that ark would be after a year? Like, even if they were shoveling the shit overboard, there were elephants on there, right? Like, elephants are taking big shits in a fucking boat for a year. Even if you're shoveling it and throwing it overboard, it's going to stink. Like, come to think of it, Noah's pretty gross. Like, that's pretty greasy, man. It's like, I get it. You were like saving mankind or whatever, and like, God told you to do it, but like, that's disgusting, man. You sat in a barn, like an enclosed barn, for a year with animals shitting everywhere. And monkeys were on there. They were probably throwing their shit at each other. Come on, Noah, get your shit together, all right? I'm just kidding, man. You're pretty good. You're pretty good, dude. You're obviously up there in heaven judging me right now. That's okay. I want to know, were you drinking red wine on the ark? Noah, if you were, give me a sign. Okay, no sign was given, so maybe he wasn't. I always just come up with random facts, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's true. That's something that happened. Like, I don't know why, but for the longest time, I thought that Cypress Hills is a place in Saskatchewan and Alberta. It's like in the southwest corner of Saskatchewan and the southeastern corner of Alberta, and maybe it's all in Saskatchewan. Shit, I don't know. Anyways, for the longest time, I thought that it was the highest geographical point in Canada. It was the highest above a sea, and I was like, well, that don't make sense with the mountains and everything. But I think I heard a teacher once or something, maybe it was the highest point in the prairies, where they were like, oh no, Cypress Hills is like the highest elevation in all of Canada. And so then I was like, and I woke up in the middle of the night because I had a dream about Cypress Hills, and I had told somebody that Cypress Hills was the highest level above sea. And they were like, no, you're full of shit. You're lying. And I'm like, I'm not lying. I'm not lying. And then I woke up and I Googled it, like right out of a dead, these are the sober dreams I've been having, right? Wake up in the middle of the night and I'm like, is Cypress Hills the biggest? Like, does it have the highest like geographical point above sea in all of Canada? And I Google it. No, it turns out not even close. So it shows how much of a liar I am. So really, if you've listened this far to every episode, if you're listening to this episode, if you're just tuning in, don't listen to anything I say and say, oh, that guy's true. He's telling the truth, because there's a good chance I am lying to you. So yeah, Cypress Hills, I Googled it. It's definitely not the highest place. Yeah, speaking of people giving false advice, I remember one time I was in Trail, BC, and I was staying with my mom. She was dating this guy. Named Ron. And Ron ran like this sheet metal company. And he's like, oh, I need help for like a couple weeks or whatever. And I was staying with my mom in Kelowna one summer. And she's like, oh, yeah, why don't you go and help, my boyfriend? And he'll pay you to work, sheet metal and whatever. And so I'm like, all right, I'll go and do it. And it was fun. I learned a lot. I worked my arse off for the guy. But I would always like come up with these reasons to use his truck, because I would want to go and I'd want to smoke weed, right? And if I just went on a walk and smoked the weed, I'd come back and I'd probably smell like it, right? And it was too sketchy. So I always had to have a reason why I was going to go, and I would drive into town and then I'd smoke it in town, and then I'd have like a drive back to the place and air out, right? And so I told him the one day, oh yeah, I need to use your truck. And he's like, why do you need to use my truck? And I'm like, oh, I need to get shaving cream. And he kind of looked at me and he's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I need shaving cream. I got to shave my neck and my face, man. Like, I need shaving cream. And he's like, you don't need shaving cream to shave. He's like, just do it out of the shower when it's hot. And I was just like, you're not my dad, Ron. I'm like, leave me alone. I was like, I want shaving cream. And he's like, all right, take the fucking truck, man. And I like go and get high. And looking back at it now, I never shave with shaving cream. Never. I always do my cheeks and my neck, always. I don't even do it right out of the shower. Sometimes I just do it dry. Your skin will get tough enough, and it doesn't need the shaving cream. So if you're using shaving cream when you shave, you're a little pussy. Take it from my fucking mom's ex-boyfriend, Ron, you dirty asshole. I was so mad when you told me. I don't know why I called you a dirty asshole. You're actually a pretty good guy, and you had pretty good hair. But why did you have to make me feel bad for getting shaving cream that day? I just wanted to get high. But I wish I would have known all those years ago that you didn't need shaving cream. I wish I would have trusted you, because I spent a lot of money on shaving cream since, and I could have spent that on drugs. Okay, Ron's not my dad. Check. Oh, the Eclipse was yesterday. Oh, that was pretty shitty. It was actually pretty cool because like it did go dark for a little bit, and even though you couldn't see the sun, like we saw it at the start, we put on our little goggles there, and we saw like a little bit of it cover over. I was like, oh wow, Eclipse, right? But then when it did like cover up, like it did get dark out. It was pretty wild, and that's here in Toronto. It got like colder, and it seemed like it was dark. Like it seemed like it was nighttime, and then it just went away. The sun came back out. And I started thinking, I'm like, well, like, did the aliens have anything to do with that? Like, who knows? Were they coming in? Were they coming out? Are aliens on the planet? Who knows, really? I think, like, there's a chance that there is aliens. I don't know if there's an alien race and we're all aliens and we're here on Earth. This was something I thought of the other day. I thought of, like, maybe we are in hell. Like, this is hell on Earth right now. And you know, there's like the Illuminati and all these guys like that are playing the strings or running, you know, that they say, oh, the Illuminati, they're running everything, you know, and they're controlling the money. They created COVID, you know, they're behind all of this shit, right? What if the devil was alive and he was like the dude who was like making the governments or making the Illuminati? He was the one pulling the strings. It's kind of dark to think of, you know. It's like Constantine, but different, I guess. Like he's like still here and he's just like influencing people, totally lying to them and just making the world more evil. And then when you've like reached like your level of healing, then you get to go up to heaven. Who's to say? I don't know. Just some weird thoughts I had when I was getting baked up. He was probably like hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein, though, you know, like if the devil was alive and he was on the planet, he would be buddies with Jeffrey Epstein for sure. And the craziest thing I think about the whole Epstein Island and all that, the client list, is they totally like just tried throwing us off. They're like Stephen Hawking, and everyone's like, oh, it's Stephen Hawking. Oh, yeah. Everybody went with Stephen Hawking, and just like nobody even knows who else was in the bucket list because everybody was just sidetracked from Stephen Hawking being like, oh my God, he was doing math with midgets. Like he just wanted to watch midgets. And the whole thing about that is like, I'm like, all right, whatever, Stevie Hawking, he's doing his thing. I was just happy we were finally saying midget again, right? Because for the longest time, it was like, oh, you can't call them midgets, you gotta call them dwarves or little people. Who knew, right? You know, I was just happy that they're calling them midgets again, right? Oh yeah, so Stephen Hawking, midgets, check. I was talking to my Uncle Kurt, and my Uncle Kurt told me that NASA wants to start a time zone for the moon. It's going to cost millions of dollars to have a time zone for the moon, so that anybody who leaves and goes up to the moon, we're all on the right time zone there. And it's like, what? Do we not have enough problems here on Earth that we could spend some of the time and some of the effort on fixing that shit? You know, we're going to spend our resources trying to figure out a fucking clock for the moon? Like, what is going on? Like, there's obviously aliens. Obviously aliens exist if we're trying to come up with like, and here's my theory is that from the eclipse, they were doing all these like scientific studies and stuff. They're going to be like, oh, guess what? We did this scientific study during the eclipse. Turns out there's aliens living on the moon. Oh, and I talked about this before. We haven't been to the moon since 1970s. Like, what? You haven't been somewhere in 50 years and then all of a sudden you show up? I guarantee they're going back to the moon. And when they get back to the moon, they're going to go, oh, there's aliens here. And it's like, yeah, maybe they didn't even go to the moon. If you're telling me that the last time they went was over 40 years ago, something doesn't add up there. People can say, oh, was it cost efficient to go? There's no resources and stuff. It's like, yeah, but still, if you leave something untouched for 40 years, it's maybe going to change a little bit. You leave a small town untouched in the prairies. You leave it untouched for 40 years. You come back, there's going to be some weird fucking children of the eyes, fucking ghost fucking aliens there trying to butt fuck you. That's my fucking theory on that. They're going to get to the moon and they're going to say, oh yeah, aliens totally exist. Now, what's wrong with having a moon clock? We don't need the resource. We don't have to spend our resources getting a moon clock. Nobody gives a shit about the time zones on the moon. If you're up in the moon, good for you. You're fucking rich. We don't need you to know what time it is. How about that, right? And there's so many different things like clocks and calendars. You know how many calendars there have been? Here's the thing. The Mayans had their calendar, right? You know, it ended in 2012. And honestly, I wish they would have got it right and the whole fucking planet ended then. Because like now, since then, it's just been a total shit show, right? Like, can you imagine if everything would have just ended in 2012? It's like, holy shit, the Mayans were right. Like, kudos to them Mexicans, you know? They sure how to know how to build construction projects. And they know how to predict what's going to happen on Earth. I'm just saying, the last 12 years have been pretty shitty since the Mayan calendar ended. So, that's just my take. Just my take. And what does that lead us to? Beat up 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 about up beat up 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 about up beat up up about up tugging it and tugging it and tugging it. We're tugging it and tugging it and tugging it. We're tugging it and tugging it and tugging it. Tugging It Tuesdays. All right, guys. This week for the Tugging It Tuesday segment, I'm just going to talk about something weird that I saw. Do you remember when you were okay? This is why I say it. I saw there was this girl in Starbucks, and she's doing her homework, and she's drawing out the little penis diagram, the reproductive system. And she's drawing it out like the Vans deferens and you know the scrot and whatever else there is in there, the urethra. I don't even know what else is comprised of the penis reproduction system. But as I saw her like drawing this penis diagram, I was just like in my head, I'm like, oh, I can show you what a real dick looks like. But then I was like, okay, she's obviously not graduated, probably underage. That's not a good thing to say. Probably not like a good thing to go through my head. I would never say it. I don't know why I even thought it. What is it about guys and seeing or hearing about a dick that they're just like, oh, you need to see my dick, you know? Oh, you gotta check out my dick. And I don't get why they make you fucking draw the dicks, draw the uterus or the vagino in health class. Who remembers any of that? I don't remember any of the units that make up the penis. I guess we've got the testes, we got the Vans deferens, we got the urethra. Is there anything else? Let me know in the comments section. TikToker joined. Does he know? Nobody knows. Nobody's commenting. Nobody knows what else is involved in the penis. There's testes, Vans deferens, urethra, sperm. Sperm comes from the testes. I don't know. On the whole Tugging It Tuesday segment here, I'm going to say, I don't get why Pee Wee Herman got in so much shit for jacking off in a movie theater. I'm just saying, if you bought the ticket to the movie and the movie sucks, you should be able to pull your pud, just like you can on the couch, just like if you're at home. If the movie sucks, that's on them. That's on you, Universal Studios. If you're boring enough that you're going to make me jack off in the movie theater, hey, I'm not getting in trouble for that. Just saying, I support Pee Wee Herman on that one. Oh yeah, this is something that I found out recently. Maybe I talked about this last week, but I don't think I did. I found out that the last three girls that I dated, after they dated me, the next person that they started dating, they married. They got engaged to and they married them. So it's good to know that I was the problem and that it wasn't them, you know. I'm like, in my head, I'm like, oh yeah, they were the fucking problem, right? No. But also they're like dating Braydon was so shitty that it's like the next person they dated, they're like, yeah, you're good enough. Let's get married, right? And it's like, looking back, it's like that's like a selling feature I could have on my Bumble, right? Or like on a TikTok, or like on the not TikTok, on Tinder, or like the Hinge, on any of them dating apps. If I go back on them, I could be on there like on the Bumble and be like, hey, if we go on a date, and it turns out it doesn't work, there's a good chance you'll get married the next person you date. So that's great knowing that I was the problem the whole time. Oh yeah, this one's funny. I think I remember when I was in like grade 10, I worked at A&W, and there was this guy in grade 12 who was about to graduate, and I asked him what his dream was. I'm like, you're about to graduate, dude. Like, what's your dream in life? And he's like, my goal is to spontaneously combust in front of a crowd of people. And I'm like, what? I'm like, what even is that, man? And he's like, it is when you explode into flames. And I'm like, dude, what? And he's like, turns out a lot of people have spontaneously combusted, but nobody has done it in front of a crowd of people. It's never been witnessed, and I want to be the first person to be witnessed spontaneously combusting it. I'm like, holy shit, man. Like, people talk about setting specific goals. That's pretty specific. I'm like, how are you going to achieve that? And he's like, I've done some research, obviously. He's like, it turns out that everybody that spontaneously combusts are massive alcoholics. So I feel like that's a good place to start. And I'm like, all right, man, all the power to you. And I forgot about this guy until like a couple months back. And I was like, oh yeah, well, what happened to spontaneous combust A&W guy? And I looked him up, and it turns out that he did die. He actually did die. Yeah, it was pretty sad. He didn't spontaneously combust. He didn't. No, he died of alcoholism. No, I'm just kidding. He didn't die. He's still working at A&W. Still flipping burgers. Not even a manager. I don't like how people have emotional support dogs. I feel like it's weakened society. It's like, oh, okay, you have social anxiety. You need a dog to go with you somewhere. No, let's just call them what they are. They're emotional support bitches for bitches. And that doesn't it doesn't mean that you're a woman being a bitch. It means that you're a little pussy. If you need a dog to go in somewhere and you need an emotional support dog, you're a bitch. That's my take on that. Am I scaring people away? Yeah, I just lost 2 viewers from saying that. That's okay. We're wrapping up right now anyways. I don't think I talked about this last week, but I'm going to talk about it right now. I got a colonoscopy done. I guess it was a couple months ago. And when I went in to get the colonoscopy, I had to do it, and this was like before I got sober, right? And so I was like, oh, I'm hoping everything's okay, right? So I get this colonoscopy done, but before you get the colonoscopy done, you have to drink this stuff called, there's like this like salty juice you got to drink, and it just makes you shit your pants for fucking 24 hours straight. And so I'm drinking this stuff, this juice, and I was at my girlfriend/ex-girlfriend's house, and I just like fucking destroying the washroom every like 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I'm going and I'm just pissing water out of my ass. But this juice that I'm drinking is called Peglite. And I'm like, Peglite. Okay, couldn't you have called it something else? Like, why not just call it like diarrhea juice? Because Peglite, it's like I'm already worried enough that I'm going to be getting pegged tomorrow, and you don't need to remind me of it. And it's not going to be a light pegging. It's obviously going to be a pretty serious pegging if there's a camera going up my fucking ass. But I remember I'm going in, and so I'm waiting in the waiting room of the colonoscopy, the old ass doctor, and everyone in there I would look over at, everyone was just so miserable. They were just the grumpiest, fucking most upset people. You could just tell on their face. They were just like, oh, fuck the world. They were just assholes. Just assholes after assholes hanging out in the colonoscopy room. Assholes in the ass doctor waiting room. That's all I got. They said I didn't need to get a colonoscopy done until I was 50. So that's good. I hope everything's good. I did some more tests. They haven't called me back. Hopefully things are good. I should probably follow up with them, right? Because who knows? I could be living with something pretty serious, but I think they would have called me. Anyways, that's been the podcast for this week. So tune in next Tuesday. We're going to have the 4th episode. I will tell you about my comedy trip to Ireland, which came after the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in on TikTok. all one of you. And thank you, everyone, for listening on Podbean. We'll see you next week.